I got a lot of visuals in my head I could see a picture, but not like a 3D picture. But when I tuned into a body, I would say, oh, there is like a spider or an octopus. So what I'm able to do is I get the mirrored symptoms in my body, and then I also get a hit in my, whether it's past life, whether it's an entity, whether it's a reptilian implant or something like that. And I got a lot of information coming in through that way. I want to get you out of your hippocampus. I want to get you out of your memory. And then I'm trying to get you to speak light language, to process it. So we spend a lot of time clearing the throat, and I go, look, just set the intention to release the fear in the back of your neck from when you were 6 years old. And then sometimes people are just coughing or they're moaning, but sometimes this light language just comes out and it's like, oh my God.
Welcome to the Endless Possibilities Podcast, where the journey of spiritual awakening and energy healing unfolds.
Hello, welcome to the Endless Possibilities Podcast. My name is Gareth, and today's guest is Peggy Oberthier. Peggy, I'm just going to give Peggy a quick introduction. And by the way, this has been recorded at the end of the interview. Normally I do it at the start, but just to let you know that at the end of the interview, we do a demonstration. So Peggy does some light language and she does some energy healing. So make sure you stay around until the end, where she does about a 10-15 minute energy healing. You'll love it. Amazing energy. So let me just give Peggy a quick introduction. Peggy offers transformative medical intuitive sessions where she creates a safe and compassionate space for profound releasing. Her work is uniquely powerful, capable of moving immense amount of energy in just one session. The intensity allows her to address and release deep-rooted blockages that may have been holding you back physically, emotionally, and or spiritually. Her counseling skills, warmth, and light-hearted humor help you to feel comfortable and relaxed throughout the process. Peggy believes in each person's innate ability to heal, yet she understands that this process can often feel slow and challenging. With her unique gift, she works alongside you, tapping into and amplifying your releasing energies. During the sessions, Peggy uses her exceptional abilities to identify root issues within your physical, emotional, and energetic system. Okay, Peggy, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to chat.
Yes, absolutely. So, Peggy, you work with Patrice and the crew, Amy and Marisol.
Yes.
You're another medical intuitive?
Yes, I am a medical intuitive. Yeah. So, I guess Patrice, Amy and I started the mentorship together at the same time, although Amy had known Patrice for a few years. But yeah, I met Amy last year. I met Patrice in March, and I had a 3-hour session with him. And at the end after about 2 hours, he just said to me, you're a medical intuitive. And I said, what? And he said, oh yeah, I'm going to put you on my directory. Just send me a photograph. I've got people to send to you, and you're ready to go. And I said, whoa, hang on, Patrice. So it was this that's how I basically discovered my gifts, which is this massive gift activation. But I'd lots of steps before then, like lots of, spiritual awakening and
Okay.
yeah, but that's how I got on there. And then we've been co-facilitating, Amy and I co-facilitate groups, and I worked with Patrice almost, I think 4 sessions a week for about 6 months until I launched all on my own. And then, he joins me sometimes, and yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So let's bring it back a little bit for people who don't know your story, right? So before the awakening, the spiritual work, the energy healing, what was your life, Peggy?
Okay. I'm just like a normal person, to be honest. I grew up, when I think back to my childhood, I always felt like an oddball. Like I had this white blonde hair. All my family had dark hair. I had 3 siblings with dark hair, both my parents with dark hair. I just felt like an alien in my family. I kind of never, primary school, I would just find the lonely kid and go and sit with them. I was quite curious. I liked school. I love learning all stuff. But I think back now, and there were definitely signs that I was quite different. I was very close with my siblings, but I couldn't really fit in. High school was a bit of a mess, but I was a good Catholic girl, you see. So I grew up Catholic. I went to mass every week. My dad had studied to become a priest for 5 years. And so I grew up with this dogma. And then I got to the final year of high school and we had this subject called world religions. And I was like, what? There's other religions. And so it really planted these seeds of doubt. I'd been duped, all this time. Like I was really drawn to Buddhism and that was quite interesting. So then I went to university and I studied history, political science, and religion. And by the time I graduated, I was a full-blown atheist, because how can you? I had this professor. One professor, she called herself a Buddhist atheist Jew, and she taught women in religion. And this is back in the 80s, where it was women's studies and all this stuff. And I was really fascinated by her take on, there is no God. But Buddhism made sense to me. So that planted a seed, and I just sort of stayed a staunch atheist, honest to God, I shouldn't say honest to God, that's quite funny, from 19 till honestly about 44 years old.
Okay.
And I moved to Australia. So I'm Canadian by birth, and I moved to Australia. I became a teacher, and I did a master's in sort of mental health, and I was always geared towards that mental health stuff. And then I finished working up in a mainstream setting, and then I ended up working in a prison, in a juvenile detention center. So I was working with these kids, and I was, this guy told me about his near-death experience, and it just blew my mind. And I was like, okay, I was actual proof that, this was stuff that was real. And it just sparked something in me to kind of start to investigate further, because I guess I missed believing, and I wanted to believe. And I don't know, I'd had a couple of spiritual experiences with, like, in a forest, where I was just so overcome with the beauty of these trees in British Columbia. I was probably in my mid-20s, and I was so overtaken by just the presence of these huge trees. And I was like, am I having a spiritual experience in a forest? So I guess I'd had seen, this beauty and, awe and wonder of the world. And I love the ocean, and I was always connected like that. And so I guess, that first experience. And then I had a friend whose husband started spontaneously channeling. And this is a guy who had like a PhD in biochemistry, very, very conservative, the most reluctant channeler you can imagine. And once she told me that story, I just went down. I listened to every podcast I could on channeling. And then I was like, oh, this is so fascinating. But I was still drawn to, like, I needed the scientific stuff. So I was like Dr. Bruce Lipton, all the people with PhDs and quantum physics. And I was really going, and I read all the Joe Dispenza books. So that was kind of like planting all these seeds, sort of like through my whole
I think the Western mind really needs those types of people.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, we need to have and then there was another physicist who was on, I forgot, on Gaia, and I was like, yeah, PhD in physics, this is an analytical brain, and she's saying that there's something out there. So I just needed that proof. And then, of course, I started having some mystical experiences, and then it was, it was just no doubt for me after that.
Okay, so what were the mystical experiences that started to turn up, Peggy?
Right. Well, so I guess for me, that I got caught up in this horrible riot at work in this prison, and I had to quit work, and it was really traumatic for me. And I was in a really low point. I was physically quite broken down and mentally just completely distraught, because my whole persona had been, external recognition of self-worth. I am an amazing teacher with these, like, sociopaths. I can get any criminal to do work for me. Like, I had this, everything was about what I'm doing and not who I am, right? I was a super mom, and I was an athlete, and I was cooking and hosting, and it was all this, like, facade, right? And it was all about, what am I doing? How am I seen? And meanwhile, I'm drinking lots of alcohol because I have social anxiety. I'm coping with my insomnia in bad ways, and I'm killing myself in the gym because I had self-esteem issues, all those things that are saying it's not working. and my body's breaking down.
Yeah, almost like you're
So
building yourself up to crumble, right?
correct. Yeah, correct. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I've been
Absolutely.
there. I've done the same.
Yeah, and it's yeah, and I guess and I'd been, I'd had a lot of self-awareness and I'd been studying counseling. I'd done a master's in counseling, and then, I'd studied a lot of trauma in my working in the prison. And I had this a lot of inclination that, my childhood, as beautiful as my mother was, she, her mother was murdered. She was orphaned at the age of 11. I was brought up in the 70s where there was like operant conditioning, right? If we just
Yeah.
ignore them,
Yeah.
then they'll stop asking for anything. And really, that's how I never learned to soothe my nervous system,
Yeah.
you know, and every emotion went in my body, like I look back now. So I'm starting to realize that I'd had, I guess, you know, and the thing is too, these core beliefs that you recognize that you have, because, when you have a mother with depression, and my mom passed away when she was 56 from cancer, your internal belief is that I'm not lovable. And she's sad, but you feel you're not lovable. So you have this core belief, I'm not lovable. So if I'm not lovable, then I need all this external validation to make sure that I can feel lovable. So which is what I was doing up until the age of 44, until that all stopped. And I was like, well, who am I? I had no job. I was crumbled. So then, that's how I started on my spiritual path. I ended up with this psychic telling me all these things. I think at the start of the journey, you really need people to tell you that you're going to be okay and that and then I discovered meditation. And that for me was the key. I was trying to find that kind of stillness, and I was all guided because my brain was like, I couldn't turn it off. Like, and even then with the guided, it was like, had to be like Joe Dispenza yelling at me in the ear,
Yeah.
which I think now I can't even
Yeah.
imagine that,
Yeah.
you know?
I think everybody understands a Joe Dispenza meditation. It's not peace and tranquility.
No, but when you have monkey mind, it's like it blasts you out of it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then of course, then we ended up, so then I started listening to every podcast I could. That was like 2019. I attended a retreat with Guy Lawrence, who's a podcaster. And I had this incredible, it was so intense. And I had this incredible, like, I guess it was like a Kundalini awakening during a sound healing. And I saw my dead grandmother, and she was saying to me, like, you're okay. You're lovable. So I really healed this part of this core belief that I was, not lovable. And it was like my grandmother was speaking on behalf of my mom, and then my mom was there. Anyway, I cried like, 3 liters of tears that whole
Wow.
3 days. It was a purge. It was a purge of, trying to shed that part of me that really questioned that I was lovable or worthy. And then from there, I guess I started on all these practices to try to just still my nervous system. So I started doing yoga and breath work. And of course, I had to do the ice baths as well. Like, the competitive part of me was sitting in there for
I
20
I did
minutes.
I did them as well. It sounds like we have a lot in common.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I was still quite competitive because I played competitive basketball at university, and so I was like, anyway. And then from there, COVID hit. And to be honest, it was probably the best thing that happened to my family. And it was just this stillness, because I got a job as a counselor in a high school, and it was just such a full-on job. And I was doing the job of 2 people, but I can do that. And, martyrdom and self-sacrifice, and as a classic 50-year-old woman. Anyway, I ended up with this meditation, and I did an online Vedic meditation course, which is, you're not meant to do it online, but he did it anyway. I got given a mantra, and it changed my life. It was like, I can do this. And I did it religiously every day during COVID, and I would extend them out because I loved the state of what it felt like. I was like, I'm going to do more than 20. And then it was just like an hour. And then it was just like, oh,
Mm.
yeah. And then, so that was really beautiful, but I wasn't getting into that pure bliss until when I got out of COVID, and I took another Vedic meditation course with a different guy and a better mantra, I guess. And then all of a sudden, bang, I'm meditating, and I'm just like, that bliss feeling of just you don't want to come out of it. It's everything stops. And I'm sure your listeners know what I'm talking about, but and that's where I just discovered there's definitely, I'm connecting. I'm like, I'm in the void. I've done it, and that, I guess that's how it really started for me, was just this, oh my God, you can't describe it. It's the high, right? And then I got some cranial sacral therapy with this lady. I was getting these, and my chest would expand, and I can feel this like pure love and light going in my body. And I'd just be like contorting on the bed, and I'd be crying. And I was like, oh my God, I think Jesus is here. She's like, yeah, Jesus is here. All these masters and angels and these powerful women would come in, and I just wanted to keep going back. So I was doing that every month, and it was just enough. And then it would get more and more intense, and I could see more and feel more. So I guess part of it was opening me up. And I did that until I had an Akashic Records reading, and this was in 2023, and she said to me, you have all these gifts, and I said, what? So she told me I had this claircognizance, and when it comes in as a knowing, you don't really know. And then I realized when I was at work and I was working with the kids and in my counseling space, I would just know what to say. I would say, oh, and they go, yes. And then I play this little game. I'm like, oh, this is an intuitive hit. So I recognized that my intuition was really guiding me. And it always had been my whole life, but I didn't really recognize that. I had people say, wow, you've got really good intuition. I'm like, no, I've just read a lot of books.
Hello, I hope you are enjoying the interview with Peggy. This is just a quick request for those who are not already subscribed. If you enjoy our content and the great conversations that we have on this show, please, please, please help support us by hitting subscribe. It goes a really long way to showing YouTube that we are a worthwhile channel, and they start to push us out to new audiences through the YouTube algorithm. And that means more views, and the more views we get, the bigger the guests we can have on. And then the show just grows organically that way. So please do us a favor, help us out. It's free. Hit like, maybe put a comment down below. And yeah, back to the interview with Peggy. Thank you so much. We always seem to doubt our intuition, right? It's just like, it seems to be the biggest block for people. It's just doubting their own knowing that's there
Correct.
always. Yeah.
That's exactly correct. And especially like if you also have a voracious appetite for knowledge, and you've read a lot, and you've read you've listened to hundreds of podcasts, you have a stack of books. So you have this, like, especially around trauma and children and adolescents and counseling. You name the course, I took it, right? On counseling. And then I was like, oh, you're just experienced. I was like, no, how would I know that? Right. So a few times it really, I worked at the school for 7 years, and we had all these suicides all over, and the whole 7 years, I didn't have one suicide. And I was the head of the well-being, because I would say, nope, that kid, I just knew in my head, like, if a kid was really suicidal or not, and what I had to do. So I knew that my intuition was working for me, and I felt quite called at this sort of like, work, but I knew that there was something else, because when I was sitting and talking to kids, and I did this EFT tapping, it was so slow. I'd be like, I think we can fix, like, I could see that it was all about when they were 3 years old, and this is what happened. And it just felt very slow. And so this lady, she said to me, you work with this Akashic Records lady. She just said, you work with energy. And I'm like, well, what is that? I don't understand what you're talking about. And then, of course, I went down the spiral until I had all these readings. And then finally, they were all cryptic. They were so cryptic. And this one lady just said to me, you're going to be tapped on the shoulder. And I said, okay, I surrender. And then, of course, 3 months later, I see this podcast with Patrice's name. And I listened to it straight away. I got in my car, to work, and I booked straight away, but couldn't get in for ages. And he emailed me and said, I'm called to see you next week. And I thought, oh my God, do I have cancer? What does he want? But then he knew he was activating my gifts. So, and yeah, that's how basically I became, a medical intuitive. And I got him
Yeah.
I channeled, I was like, he said, no, no, no. I said, no, Patrice, you need to mentor me. Like, he said, no, you have everything you have. See, he sees the energy that's so up here. He sees your whole higher self, your soul. He goes straight in you and sees all that. And so my analytical mind was like, no, I need to have knowledge. I need to have structure. I need to have like methods. And so it's been a totally different.
There's a total disconnect there, right? It's like we're so used to the analytical part of our minds and trying to figure out how everything works. And this is the complete opposite, right? It's just going, oh, okay, I just trust, just sit back, trust, let what comes in, comes in. So that must have been a big challenge for you to sort of switch from the.
Oh, yeah. It was like my whole world. And I'd been waiting because like I knew there was something else, but I didn't know what it was. And I'm glad nobody said to me, oh, you're an energy healer. Somebody told me I was a transmuter. So I had this lady who gave me this, and she said, no, you're hunting entities in the astral. Yeah, I see you as a hunter. And I was like, what? She said, yeah, like I see you like, it's like a wild boar and you're like, you're killing the pig. I said, well, how do I translate that? And so, but it was good because it's exactly, if she had told me that I was going to be I would have probably gone down path and taken this course or, it all happened exactly. I was supposed to meet Patrice. I was supposed to meet Amy. I was supposed to meet, it was all happened like that.
Okay, so medical intuitive, right? How does that work? When somebody turns up with you, how do you connect with them? What way do you process it? Like, how do you see? How do you sense? How do you clear it? Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, is it metaphorical? Like, like, okay, for instance, you said that woman seeing you as like the hunter chasing the boar, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's metaphorical, right?
Yeah, metaphorical. Yeah. So at the start of my journey with Patrice, I got a lot of visuals in my head I could see a picture, but not like a 3D picture. But when I tuned into a body, I would say, oh, there is like a spider or an octopus. So like entities for me came up as sort of like, like a scorpion or a spider or a snake wrapped around the bells or, and so, and I would get a lot of visuals of the past lives. Like I would have the full story. It was very, very detailed. But now I don't get it that those visuals in my, and I work very differently to Patrice, Amy, and Mary Saul, because one of my gifts is very different. It's so what I'm able to do is so first of all, the messages come in for me it comes in, I get that mirrored symptom in the body, very similar to Amy. So, and that's how we were both building our confidence. We're like, oh, I got to pay my neck. Oh, I got to pay my neck too. So it was like this, that's how the mentorship was really good to help build your knowings and knowing that they're right. So I get the mirrored symptoms in my body, and then I also get a hit in my, whether it's past life, whether it's an entity, whether it's a reptilian implant or something like that. And I have a lot more I got a lot of information coming in through that way. But the other thing that I have is that I get a very specific timeline of events from your 3D life around 4 years old, anger stuck in your neck. And so what I find is once I clear the entity, or is that I still usually those entities are drawn to where there has been an emotional charge. So it might have been an accident but what I'm finding more and more is that these emotions are like the buried deep, deep emotions, the ones that you can't process. And even if you've gone through it in an intellectual way, or you're like, it's still there. It's still there. So for me, it's very, very clear. And the clients all just say, yep. And sometimes I try to get them out of the story. So I don't want them going back. This is this beautiful trauma-informed way of this energy work, having practiced as a, trauma-informed counselor for years. This is much better. I want to get you out of your hippocampus. I want to get you out of your memory. And then I'm trying to get you to speak light language, to process it. So we spend a lot of time clearing the throat, and I go, look, just set the intention to release the fear in the back of your neck from when you were 6 years old. And they go, And then sometimes people are just coughing or they're moaning, but sometimes this light language just comes out and it's like, oh my God. Now, the person never has to, I don't want to know the details. You don't have to tell me the details, because as you tell the details, they just strengthen those neural pathways in your brain, going from your amygdala to your hippocampus. It's just like this loop: memory, stress response, body, pain, you know, let's get you out of that. And honest to God, it's crazy, but I just burp. Like I burp, I yawn, I shake, and there's this visceral release. So I'm holding this high frequency, and I am able to, I guess, transmute that stuck emotion for that person. And I liken it to, like, they're caught in like like in a stream, and I'm in the still point, and I'm just like throwing out a little life buoy and I'm pulling them in. And that's what I feel like I'm doing in the session. And when I'm bringing back to that still point, that's their true self. That is the essence of who they are prior to these events. So it's like, and yeah. And so that's what happens. Sometimes clients don't remember and sometimes they do, but mostly it's just coming in as like 2016 shame. Yeah, my pet died. I blame myself, right? Well, let's get rid of it. And we try to have a bit of fun. We try to, we don't need that anymore. Who needs to think about that ex-boyfriend? And we just try to have a laugh and we try to bring up a bit of some joy,
So, Peggy, I have a question. So, okay, so it seems like people, they're stuck in the left side of their minds, right? They're
Yeah.
thinking about these traumas, re-stimulating it, feeling it through their bodies. You talk about like seeing like scorpions
Yeah.
and astral attachments, beings. Are they astral beings, or is it just metaphorical for trauma in that area? Or
Okay, so my theory and what I've channeled is that you in those points where you have an stuck energy, it's almost like these parasitic type of beings that are drawn to that area. So they can just be stuck feelings,
yeah,
right? But oftentimes there's layers. There's an entity attached to that trauma area. So that's what it's like a compounding. And like, because it started off with just me like, oh, okay, yeah, there's definitely something there. So we'll remove that. And then let's say the scorpion flies away. I don't see it like that anymore. I just have a knowing. And then I go, oh, hang on. No, it's like you're 14 years old. And they go, oh, I go, no, you can't express it. It's like you've swallowed it all down. And it's not like the big life events that they go, oh yeah, I had a breakup. I go, no, it's not that. They go, oh, I broke up in 2000. I said, nope. And then I might get it's like you've taken on the pain for someone. Oh yes, my mom went through this thing. And so this 12-year-old kid is like taken on the suffering of the mother, and the grief is stuck in the chest or in the throat, or, it's like, I get a lot of clients with these gifts and they have terror and fear stuck in them from when they were 7 because they had a nightmare. They wake up and their parent goes, it's okay, it's a dream. But that is real. You're in the astral when you're 7 years old. That gets stuck,
And the terror and the fear and the shame, like, does that take on like the form of an entity or an energy? Is it like, are we creating it? I find it fascinating, to be honest.
Yeah, look, I think the way I see it is that it's a weak point, and
Yeah,
it's an attachment to a weak point. Because when you are when you are in your alignment and you are vibrating at a very high level, you don't get those attacks.
yeah,
You just don't. So
yeah.
I feel like it's the parts of your body that are not in full alignment with the true essence of who you are. That's where I feel. So they're layers, It's like it feels like weak. That's how I've been seeing it. So my sessions are very much, and the people that are all drawn to me, we're trying to help process some of those 3D stuff. But people are on this very high, they're already on this strong spiritual path, and they just know they have a few blocks, you
They
see?
sense them. They just sense there's blocks in their energy
Yes,
systems. Yeah,
yes. And then they
yeah.
just go, oh my God, it's gone. you know? So
And they
that's
feel
the
much lighter and more
much,
expanded and more
much lighter.
capable. Yeah, amazing,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And it couldn't it might be sometimes it's always the emotions that are the hardest to process. It's not the death of your grandmother. It's not, you know, because we have rituals and it's okay. You need to cry. You're sad, you missed your grandmother. You cry. You cry in bed, you look at a picture of your grandma, you cry. It's shame, it's guilt. Nobody says, oh, I'm so ashamed that I did that. Like nobody says that ever. You know, it's like, you know, the guilt that people carry. Oh
I
my
know,
goodness.
I know. Yeah, it's actually really sad, you know. Humans,
Yes.
it's really difficult being a human.
It is. It is. It really is.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
That those feelings are hard. They're very tricky. And then you know, a lot of clients that might say, oh no, I thought I dealt with that. I said, yeah, no, you've dealt with it on an intellectual basis, but your body is telling you different. And that's totally fine. You've done a great job. And now this is just the last little, like, you know, little,
So Peggy, you said something there, right? On an intellectual level, right? The person obviously wants to clear something in the system. They can sense it, but it's almost like we can't access it with the intellect. We can't think our way out of this, or we can't think our way
mm,
into healing. So
yeah.
when you work with somebody, how do you access that stored trauma or blocked energy that's in someone's system that's down, you know, at the bone and sinew level?
Yeah. It's a good question. Well, I just my guides like I spend a long time preparing before a session. I call in my guides. Like it can be I have to do this huge ritual. It takes me about an hour and a half to 2 hours. So it's like it's a very drawn out process. I call in all my guides and I'm really tuning in. And you know, I had a client the other day saying, "Were you doing something 2 hours ago because I started crying?" I said, "Yes, I was working on you 2 hours ago." So those are the really energetically sensitive people know that I mean, from the moment you book, we have
Yeah.
this higher self contract that I'm starting to shift. But so 2 hours, you know, I do this process 2 hours before, but when I'm sitting there, I just get, it literally just pops in my head, 7 years old grief. Like, and, you know, and it's never, and there's only the odd time, you know, this lady was like, oh, I don't remember. I don't remember. And then she emailed me, oh yeah, my mom tried to choke me. I said, okay, yeah, that would be a reason for being angry, you know, like,
Yeah.
and then sometimes if it's not coming in, if they're not meant to remember, and I don't want them to, I just know my guides are telling me accurate information because every client is telling me, yes, you know, when I say this happened to you at 4, yes, that's when my brother started molesting me. Like it's literally that, you know, or that's when it's very, very, and then I go 9 years old. Oh, yeah, that's when I told my mom and she didn't believe me, or some, you know, it's literally like that. 42, you know, and I remember one time Patrice, who joined the call with me, he said, impossible. And we all burst out laughing because you can't be. I said, what are you talking about? She goes, she's not 42. And she was like in her 60s or something. It was really funny, but he did it exactly at the time because it was a really traumatic event. And he used his humor to like lift it and shift it. And that actually shifted it faster than anything.
I have to say, I really love bringing humor into this work. I think it's so important just to get people out of like, this has to be serious
Yes.
and make them laugh and make them get out of their minds, into their bodies, feel, you know, it's okay to laugh at this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And that's why I could never do traditional talk therapy. I was looking, oh, do I do my master's in psychology? Do I do this and that? And I was just like, oh, it's all too serious. And like, because I'm burping the whole time, it's
Yeah,
so crazy.
who can take
And
you
I vomit.
serious?
I go, just hang on, I'm just gonna vomit. So I vomit, I come back and I go, oh my God, are you okay? And I go, no, 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 my soul signed up for this. You know, you've already got a couple buckets, or some people come on the call and I'm like, you know what? I've already thrown up. You got some heavy stuff, you know, let's get to work. So you have to have a bit of humor because you're unpacking these demons, you know, like literally some of them are demons, you know.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's the humor. I mean, and we can release so much when we actually like get into that state of like,
Yeah,
oh, you know, it's like an emotional release happens when we start laughing or
that's right.
yeah, I often notice
Yeah.
people, you know, one person will start and it's almost like they give everybody else permission. Oh, you're laughing, or oh, you've just released that by screaming or burping, and it kind of sets everything off in the group. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, you know, some people have been gifted like transmutation by laughter. Like there's even some people like that. But even the guides are funny. Like I literally, so I do light language, right? And it comes in all these weird and wonderful ways. And sometimes I'm singing and I know I'm off cue. And, you know, I finish and then I know Metatron, he's got a very funny sense of humor. I know that sounds crazy, but he just goes, that was really bad, you know, and I have to say, okay, Metatron's here and he's just mocked me for singing. I hope you're okay with that. And I go, oh yeah, I love Metatron. He's always there. And Jesus claps, like he just gives me like this, you know, Jesus is very funny as well. He's a very funny person.
Okay, talk to me about the guides.
The guides. Well, so I guess I work with I don't have like a, you know, this counsel or anything. I just work with whoever comes in. So I call in everyone, right? But I guess I call in everybody. Dragons have been coming through, like the most crazy thing that happens to my body when the dragons come through. They come through when there's like a lot of like something big that needs to shift, like a reptilian implant or a demon. And my whole body contorts and I make this weird sound. Patrice would always send me like a screenshot of me in that weird position and then, you know, make fun of me. So we have, you know, you just have to, that's how he's mocking me with this.
Yeah, it
or
really
laugh.
doesn't
He
have
would
to
just
be serious.
No, it doesn't. So the dragons come in to help transmute so I work a lot with the Arcturians and the Pleiadians, again, star family, new to me, but I've been told that the technology that I use to help transmute is very Arcturian. And so that when the light language comes in, it's a channeling, sometimes it comes in and it's like half channeled, half message for the person. I'm like interpreting what they're saying. It's like a specific message. The Pleiadians come in to give love. It's to help. So I'd extract and then I have to fill up with love. Like Amy is like straight love. You know, she's just like, wah, all the time. Patrice is like this cosmic vacuum cleaner, you know, like next level. And I do both. Like I take it out and then I have to put the love in, but I have to be very intentional. Whereas Amy's just like, you know, she's just like this beautiful, huge archangel. She's actually an archangel. I know she's very humble, but I will tell your
very
audience.
humble. She really is very humble.
She has no idea. And I would tune into her when I'm channeling and I'd go, Amy, oh my God, like your wings are ridiculous. You got this big Power Ranger suit on and she has no idea how powerful she is. Her energy is like, it's next level.
Yeah, I really enjoyed talking. There's something about her. She's just so humble, so unassuming. Yeah, she's great. The dragons, right? I'm sure people are going, dragons? Talk to me about the dragons. How do they work? Where do they reside, Peggy?
I have no idea, Gareth. When I was meditating and I started going, and I was like, it was just like involuntary. And so I messaged Patrice, I go, what the heck's going on here? Like, I don't, he goes, oh, it's the dragons. They're coming in. They're fixing up your nervous system. You're going to be channeling and using dragons. So they're just like a powerful frequency. I still am not really sure. Like I'm not, you know, I'm just like, I swear to God, I'm just a normal person.
Yeah.
And then these dragons come in. And I don't know. And I'm kind of still in the spiritual closet with my whole family and all my friends. So they don't even know. I tell them I do counseling, and some people I tell them I'm an energy, but I certainly don't mention the dragons.
Yeah. I if people ask me what I do, I'm a meditation teacher. That's what I say. People are usually fine with that.
Yeah. So the dragons, I don't know. It's the elementals, and you know, I've got beautiful clients, and I always ask them when they're connected at the end, and we clean them all up. I go, "Do you have a message for me?" And some people say, "Oh, you need to work with fairies." Okay, so I ask the fairies to come in and help me now. You know, so and sometimes the fairies will come in, and I can see them like sprinkling fairy dust on the client, and I'll go, "Oh, the fairies are sprinkling fairy dust," and they go, "Oh, I love fairies." So it's almost like whoever comes in is whoever the client normally resonates with. So I'll say, I'm seeing green, and that's like Raphael. And they go, oh, I love Raphael. I've been seeing him all week. Or the blue will come in, and I'll say, oh, it's Michael. It's Archangel. I think Archangel Michael's here. And you go, oh, yes, I always work with him. So, you know, and then Jesus comes in. Yeah. So
it's sort of putting the client at ease, and they're going, oh yeah, that's my team, that's my guides. I feel comfortable now with the healing. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I guess that must be how it works, because I just get them as a knowing. And although Jesus is really interesting, when his energy comes in, my sinus is all clear. And so it's like this, it's a really powerful presence. So yeah, Jesus is very, very powerful that way.
And this team, right? They somehow use your physical form here in reality to be like their hands and eyes here to help
Yeah,
with the work.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess that's how it works, you know. I mean,
And you're
I don't really
useful.
know.
You're useful. You're just kind of
I,
switching off the analytical part of your mind. And you're going, okay, I don't know why I'm doing this, but okay, let's do it. And you've done so much work. You're organized. You've done your research. You've done all these different courses. You can communicate with people, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And because I've worked so many years as a counselor, I think I have that, I can hold space and
Skills.
listen and reflect and also, you know, so that helps a lot. So the sessions, everyone who books with me needs to book with me. And people who've booked with Amy and Patrice, they go, oh, that's amazing. And they go, oh, but you're very different. Yeah, I'm different. And we all just have, and that's why when Patrice goes, no, you have to see Peggy. It's like, it's like there is a match that has to happen, and he sort of knows that, or you know, and I send clients, so I might have a session with my client and I'll get, I mean, I'm not really the kind of person that goes, you need another one or whatever.
Yeah.
I go, look, why don't you try this group? You know, I send them YouTubes of Mary Saul's light language, and I just go, this will blow your mind. That's going to help your nervous system. Start with that. I get them on the directory at the groups, especially if they're North American or European, because really the groups are for that time zone. And then Australia, we don't have as many, but I'm starting to build them up. I started to do a few, I did like karma clearings. I was a bit interested in karma. I had this like channel thing that when well, I guess, you know, I channeled that Patrice was like the Lord of Karma up in the, you know, when you've finished your life and you go up there and you're like, okay, I want to come back as a, you know, millionaire. He's like, no, you have to go back as a goat. So he he's pretty tough like that.
Yeah, I
He's
can see
very,
him doing something like that. Yeah, yeah.
and so I channeled that I was up there as well, but in training. And so I have this I've had to let go of my very strong sense of like justice and fairness, which is something that I've carried on for many lives and many, many past lives. That's the other thing I do is I clear past lives as well. So or I hold the frequency to release the limiting belief from that past life that is holding a person back. Does that make sense?
I find that
Yeah.
fascinating, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because past lives are they're so connected to our limiting beliefs of today. The past lives are like, you know, so especially the irrational fears. It's like, oh no, I'm just afraid. I'm like, well, you know what? Because you've had your head chopped off,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So on an intellectual level, we don't have the memories from the past life, but on a like an emotional feeling sense, it's holding us back, right? Making big
Yeah,
decisions, moving forward. Something there's been tragedy in previous lives. Like
correct. Yeah.
I was a spiritual
Yeah.
healer and I was burnt at the stake.
Correct. Yeah.
Translates into not being able to stand into your power in this life with energy healing or something.
Absolutely holds people back 100%. Like that is, I don't know how many past lives I've shed about that, but it's, you know, every step of the way, you know, being thrown in the deep end, Patrice going, no, 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 you can do this. And, you know, it's another past life to clear, but you know, inevitably there'd be a person on the call and I'm like, oh my God, they killed me in a past life, or, oh, they burnt me at the stake, you know? So, you know, he used to call me Sherlock because I'd be sending all these messages and he'd say, you're just getting too angry, get out of the story, because I wasn't in my forgiveness, right? You have to really sit in forgiveness and
Mm.
release to really cut the karmic ties, you know? And then I guess one of the things too I see a lot is that when people have suffered a lot in this lifetime, there seems to be many lifetimes of suffering, and there's really stuck with that identity of the victim, you know, that like self-suffering. It's like they've almost taken a vow of suffering because, you know, they let their kid die, you know, in a past life. And so like, I will suffer forever. And so it's not rational when we're, you know, you're speaking to them, you're like, this is actually related to a past life as well. So let's clear that, you know, like I can see, and they go, oh yes, I had past life regression and this happened. I said, well, so I don't tell people the story anymore either, because people just cling to those, you know, I was killed, and you know, they love
Yeah.
telling their story. No more,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
I feel it's a good way of working. It's not giving the mind too much to grasp onto a story because it just becomes another story, and then they go around telling everybody, "Oh, in my last life I was killed," and blah blah blah, and then they're going with that story.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Again, it's clinging to this identity of the 3D. That's not who we are. That's not who we are at all. Like we are these beautiful beings that those are just avatars. They're just little game experiences that we chose. We signed up for it. Like I go, like imagine, Patrice with the iPad going, okay, tick a few experiences here,
Yeah.
All right, I'll take torture and bankruptcy, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Peggy, a lot of the viewers and listeners, they really love the demonstrations. Would you
Oh,
like to
yes.
give a demonstration during this interview? Now,
Yeah.
on one of my previous the with Amy, she muted herself and the camera immediately went to me.
Okay.
And it blocked her. So I don't want that to happen. So maybe I'll just stay quiet now and then you can talk.
Okay. I just have to bring in my guides. Yeah. All right. Okay. Okay. Is there a light language transmission for the audience? Warate ke kokoro no mai to ai katana ti kukuru te kai dana. Shutukuro tawaita a rata matu kukuru no mate. Mai kana karate tikiri ni no ai koko ai kata. Si tukuro no mai to ai a shatu ai nama tikiri tika a ka aro no matuku. Kashara namate o ai kata a ka ata namate. Yeah, that's an interesting one. That's like I don't know, some kind of wise older priestess sort of giving a message about. Mm. That's it. That's the message. It's beautiful energy, Gareth. Sorry. You feel very familiar to me, Gareth. Like I know you. Yeah. Like I've known you for a long time. I think when the first time I saw you on the podcast talking about your spiritual awakening, I was like, yeah, I know that guy.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like the energy signature, right? It's like, the
Mm,
form, okay, but when you kind of quiet down the mind and you sink in, it's like, oh, you know,
yeah.
I think a lot of us know
Mm,
one another in these
mm,
circles.
mm. I'm getting hot.
Yeah, this is a nice little treat for the viewers.
Mm. A bit of a figure eight happening. went a lot longer.
That was great.
I had this really big energy come in, and I was like, oh no, I can't. Yeah, sorry, I'm so tired. I had a huge day, so
Okay.
I'm from the future, Gareth, so it's 9 p.m. my time.
Yeah. And do you want to just briefly tell us what was going on in the session for you?
Okay, so it just feels like, you know what? Like if you've been in a hospital and you had a morphine drip, that's what it feels like for me. I get high,
Mm.
It's like you can't really compare that. I don't know how to, it's like this sensation that you are in this total bliss state. So, when you first start going through your spiritual awakening, it's like, whoa, and it's like this really big high. It's not that, but it's a bliss, but it feels like home. I don't know. Like it's like I don't know. How do you describe it?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a bliss, but you're totally in your faculties, right?
Yes, yes,
yeah,
yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, you're not
yeah.
intoxicated, right? You're not, it's not like it's
Yes,
a,
yeah,
yeah, lowering of your senses. It's like, oh, I can immediately come out and be totally functional.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, that was great. One of the things I noticed that on some of the videos on the analytics, I can see where the video, that kind of gives you a little chart. And then I noticed that on the demonstrations, there was a big spike where people were obviously
Mm.
going back and watching it multiple times.
Oh, wow,
So,
that's
so
cool.
people appreciate it. I can see that from the analytics. Yeah, fabulous. Really, really fabulous. Was there anything I left out, or is there any little message that you'd like to close on, Peggy?
I guess I just want to remind all the viewers that the path it's not linear. It's really rocky. And, even though I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh yes, I'm like, I am totally in bliss state when I'm working with clients. It's hard. It's hard work. I get triggered every day. I have to surrender. It's like the 3D life it's hard. And I guess if you're willing to be vulnerable and trust, surrender it's such a buzzword, but honestly, it makes it's this huge, huge thing that happens. And I have so many synchronicities once I finally surrender. It's like almost instant. And the
Wonderful.
universe yeah. So yeah, that's about it,
Wonderful.
really.
Thank you, Peggy. Peggy, if people want to find you, I'm going to link to your website and your social medias. Do you want to just tell us, for anyone listening on the podcast, your website?
It's peggyo.com.au. It's pretty straightforward. And yeah, I do one-on-ones, and I have group offerings with Amy, and I do some karma clearings, but I'm waiting for the next one to be channeled in. So
Beautiful.
yeah, the
Wonderful.
date comes through when it comes through.
And do you do any of your healings on YouTube? Is there any of your work on YouTube, or?
So I actually have a YouTube channel that Patrice and I started that I interview people. So hopefully you'll be able to be a guest for us,
Yes,
Gareth.
yes, you've
Yes,
invited me
excellent.
on, and
Yes.
I've watched
So
some of
yes,
the
I do. I've
interviews.
got yeah. So we've got just a small number of subscribers. We get a lot of views though, and it's very raw. Like there's not much editing that goes into it. So we just do the interview and get it out there. And
Wonderful.
yeah, so YouTube channel, Medical Intuitive at YouTube. So that will be linked below as well. And
Yeah,
yeah, we got some exciting guests coming up, so it'll be good.
good. Peggy, yes, thank you so much. Thank you to all the viewers and the listeners. Peggy,
Thank you. I've
take
really, really
care.
appreciated this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Bye-bye. Take care,
Bye.
everybody. Bye-bye.
This has been the Endless Possibilities Podcast, where the journey of spiritual awakening and energy healing unfolds. Gareth is a lifelong seeker of truth, a spiritual teacher and author, and it's his passion to delve into the profound world of consciousness. We hope you've enjoyed the show, and we hope you've gotten something from it. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, the podcast is available on YouTube and all the major podcasting platforms. Find us on Instagram at _mother_force. Take care, and we'll see you soon on the Endless Possibilities Podcast.